me gustan todas en general, pero esa rubia me gusta más. Muchacho, no digas eso, que tu madre...
Here I am, at Calvary Cemetery in Los Angeles, California, in search of Ramon Novarro's grave. Let's go behind the sign. I had no idea where I was going when I pulled up to the gates of Calvary Cemetery, one of the oldest and largest cemeteries in Los Angeles. I was a bit overwhelmed and didn't know where to begin in my search for Ramon Novarro's grave. The cemetery feels more like a movie set. Its main mausoleum looks like a giant set piece from Ben-Hur. I wouldn't have been surprised if Ramon rose up from the grave on the back of a black and white chariot and galloped past. But we were a long ways away from Ramon's glory days of the 1920s, and boy were they glorious.
I'm afraid of losing what I found. You. I saw you once in the bois. You were so lovely. I watched you till you drove out of sight among the chestnut blossoms. Oh, Paris in the spring. And now I'm here with you. But perhaps next spring the war will be over. You and I, never alone again. I mean, at least my thoughts will always be with you.
Two twists of fate sent Ramon's star skyrocketing into the stratosphere. 1925's silent film Ben-Hur made Ramon a star. I wonder why. Ramon was only given the title role in Ben-Hur after the original director was fired, along with pretty much the entire cast in what is known as the MGM Purge. The film's new director, Fred Niblo, had previously worked with Ramon and insisted that the young actor replace actor George Walsh in the lead role. But get this, Ramon arrived in Italy to start filming, but no one had informed George Walsh that he had been fired.
My bad.
But it was the unexpected death of Hollywood's first Latin lover, Rudolph Valentino, in 1926 that made Ramon a bona fide sex symbol. Valentino died trying to prove his manliness. The actor went to great lengths to deny accusations that hinted at homosexuality, like scheduling a boxing match with the Chicago Tribune reporter who had written a racist and homophobic editorial on the actor. The match would ultimately prove Valentino to be a mere mortal. On August 5, 1926, Valentino collapsed and was rushed to the hospital where he was diagnosed with appendicitis. Surgery was performed immediately. His condition worsened on August 21st. The doctors realized that Valentino was going to die, but as was standard at the time, they chose to withhold this information. Valentino reportedly believed that he was going to recover, but during the early hours of Monday, August 23rd, Valentino was briefly conscious and chatted with doctors about his future before lapsing into a coma. He died a few hours later at the age of 31. Valentino's premature death led to mass hysteria, and on the day of his funeral, over 100,000 people lined the streets of Manhattan to pay their respects.
Women do not love Rudolph Valentino. They are infatuated with what he stands for. They are in love with love.
Where was I? Oh yeah.
You're a strange boy who loves you. Do you?
Ramon was only given the title of Hollywood's leading Latin lover after Valentino's death. Yet, he rarely played Latino characters, and he grew obsessed with reclaiming his true cultural identity. Ramon's co-star Mata Hari, Lionel Barrymore, is buried in the main mausoleum at Calvary Cemetery, along with Ethel Barrymore and John Barrymore's empty crypt. By way of Ramon, Lionel led me to a grave I'd been meaning to visit for some time now. The crypt of silent film star Mabel Normand. Mabel is considered the first queen of comedy. Mabel appeared in 12 films with silent screen's biggest star Charlie Chaplin, and 17 with comedian Fatty Arbuckle. At the height of her stardom in the 1920s, Mabel was linked to a variety of widely publicized scandals. Mabel's favorite co-star, Fatty Arbuckle, was accused of raping and killing a woman. After 3 trials, Arbuckle was acquitted, but the scandal destroyed his career, and his films were basically banned. Much of Mabel's best work was lost to one of Hollywood's first scandals. Mabel was also the last person to see her friend, director William Desmond Taylor, alive. Rumors swirled that drug dealers had Desmond killed because Mabel had asked him for help in kicking a cocaine habit. And in 1924, Mabel's driver, Joe Kelly, shot and wounded a millionaire oil broker using Mabel's pistol. Poor Mabel. Her taste in men sucked. Her career never recovered from those unfortunate incidents. And on February 23, 1930, Mabel died from tuberculosis. This is a really difficult grave to find. They don't hand out maps at Calvary. It's so easy to get lost amongst the thousands of graves and crypts at Calvary. It's the quintessential LA cemetery. Regular people buried alongside dead celebrities. Death in LA. You're nobody unless you're buried next to somebody famous. And you're someone if you're buried next to Ramon Novarro. After seeing Ramon's mountain of fan mail, mostly women who admired his androgynous beauty and that abbreviated costume of his, MGM raised his salary to $10,000 a week. At the peak of his success, in the late 20s and early 1930s, Ramon was earning more than $100,000 per film. He even invested in real estate, because he had no choice. This building is the Samuel Novarro house. Sorry, I thought somebody was coming down the stairs. The Samuel Novarro house was designed in 1928 by Frank Lloyd Wright's son, Lloyd Wright. The house was built for Ramon's manager, Louis Samuel. It looks like it's being gutted at the moment. In 1931, Ramon learned that Samuel was embezzling money from him. Samuel lost all of Ramon's money on the stock market, but Ramon was able to win ownership of the property in a settlement, and he never ratted out his manager to authorities. But when his star started to fade and the roles dried up, Ramon downsized to a house in Laurel Canyon. Here I am at 3110 Laurel Canyon Boulevard, and behind these gates, on Halloween Eve 1968, 2 young male prostitutes rang the doorbell. Ramon, now a 69-year-old man, greeted them in a red and blue bathrobe. He then invited the 2 strangers inside.
Why are you doing this to us? Because you were home.
By the time brothers Paul and Tom Ferguson showed up on Ramon's doorstep, the movie roles had long since dried up for the actor. His star, as well as his looks, had faded. He had been reduced to the occasional guest spot on TV shows like Bonanza. But Ramon would soon be front page news again. When his secretary of 8 years, Edward Weber, reported to work on the morning of Halloween, Edward found Ramon's house in a state of disarray. Chairs overturned, a pair of spectacles crushed on the living room carpet, and liquor bottles everywhere. Edward searched the house, and what he found would only be rivaled the following year by the Tate LaBianca murders.
Lino LaBianca, a supermarket owner, and his wife had both been stabbed to death, repeated stab wounds. On his body, the word war had been carved in the chest. Then, with blood, the killer had scrawled on a refrigerator door the words, "Death to pigs."
The brutal murders of Lino LaBianca and Ramon bear some striking similarities, not to mention that Lino is also interred at Calvary Cemetery. Lino was a supermarket executive and his second wife Rosemary owned a dress shop. Supposedly, Charles Manson and his family members only decided on the LaBianca residence because they had attended a party at the house next door the previous year. As he was being stabbed by family member Tex Watson, Lino LaBianca's last words were, "I'm dead. I'm dead."
Do you feel blame? Are you mad? Do you feel like Woods Kebab's referendums? Get friends,
I'm parked in front of Lino LaBianca's grave at the Calvary Cemetery, and guess what song's playing on the radio? Helter Skelter! Just like that.
I think that's a sin.
I'm going to tell you a secret.
Ramon believed that being gay was a sin. Looking around at all the Catholic iconography at Calvary, I can't help but feel deep empathy for Ramon. A fervent Catholic for more than 30 years, he struggled to reconcile his sexuality with his deep religious convictions. Before Ramon was famous, he had a relationship with a fellow usher at the LA Philharmonic. The boys were madly in love and lived together in the early 20s, which was so brave of them, I can't even imagine. But Ramon broke off the relationship just as his career was taking off. Throughout his entire career, Ramon went to great pains to conceal his sexuality. This eventually led to the actor's alcoholism, which ruined his career by prematurely aging him. It's also probably why he moved in with his publicist, Herbert Howe. When MGM's head honcho, Louis B. Mayer, demanded that Ramon marry a woman to cover up his true sexual orientation, Ramon flat out refused. Instead, he had Herbert plant scoops in the gossip columns about his fictional romances with a bevy of 20 starlets. Ramon once said, "We are an illusion, just an image on the screen that can never live up to their expectations in person." That illusion was shattered on October 30th, 1968. Ramon's murder brought his sexuality out into the open and put his private life on trial along with his killers. Ramon was doubly violated by the murder and by the trial that exposed every intimate detail of his hidden sexuality. Unfortunately, Ramon's legacy has been eclipsed by the disturbing events of that Halloween Eve. Paul Ferguson, 22, and Tommy Ferguson, 17, were brothers from Chicago. Paul had been hustling since he was 10 years old. As he once put it, "I would sell myself to the local pervert to get meat, beans, and bread to take home to my family." Paul also appeared in a couple of porno films to make ends meet. Tommy had recently joined his brother in Los Angeles. He confessed to Paul that he too sometimes hustled for money. Paul phoned Victor Nichols, a real estate developer with ties to the hustling world. Victor gave the brothers Ramon's number. The idea was to get Ramon drunk, string him along, do whatever needed doing, and then find his hidden cash. Ramon was more than comfortable with the brothers, as he frequently used an escort service to procure boys, and the Ferguson brothers were just too damn cute to turn away. Ramon, always the gracious host, served beverages. Paul had vodka, while Tommy drank beer and tequila. Ramon read Paul's palm and told him he had a long lifeline. Ramon served chicken gizzards and ordered cigarettes from the liquor store. Ramon called a film publicist and told him that he wanted to introduce a young man who had star quality. That would be the last anyone would hear from Ramon Novarro. It's likely that after that phone call, the former heartthrob engaged in sexual activity with Paul, and then at some point during the evening after the two had dressed, Paul demanded that Ramon hand over the $5,000 he was rumored to keep hidden in his home. Ramon truthfully stated he never kept large sums of money in his residence. Tommy, who had been speaking to a girl in Chicago from Ramon's phone,
Idiot.
joined Paul in jostling, shaking, and shoving Ramon. When that didn't net him their hidden treasure, the brothers began pummeling him violently. And to keep Ramon from losing consciousness and extend the torture as long as possible, they dragged the 69-year-old into the bathroom and splashed him with cold water. One of the brothers, while searching the home, found a cane, and he twirled it around and danced with it as Ramon lay beaten and bleeding on the floor. When the Catholic Ramon began praying, "Hail Mary, full of grace," the brothers bound him with an electrical cord and took turns striking him in the head and genitals with a cane. Tom, while carrying the bludgeoned and dying Ramon to bed, scratched the older man's face in anger. The brothers left Ramon to choke to death on his own blood. The coroner later determined that had Ramon been placed on his side or on his stomach rather than on his back, he would have lived. His killers then decided to ransack the house, dumping Ramon's professional stills and photos on the floor and attempting to create a scene of robbery gone wrong. Complicating matters, they also thought it would help to make the crime scene seem as though a vengeful woman had committed it, writing on the bathroom mirror, "Us girls are better than faggots." They left the house with the cash they had netted from their torture and murder. $20 taken from the pocket of Ramon's red and blue silk robe.
Because I feel that if God gives you a certain amount of money, you should learn how to handle it. And don't ever trust anybody.
During the subsequent trial, Ramon's sexual proclivities were splashed on the front pages of every newspaper across the country. Every aspect of his sex life was examined and tried. The jury deliberated for 2 days before finding the Ferguson brothers guilty of first-degree murder. The brothers were sentenced to life. As the Fergusons served their sentences, the legend of their crimes infiltrated pop culture. The most infamous reference to the murder is in Kenneth Anger's salacious, if not liable, Hollywood Babylon. Anger asserts that the murder weapon used to kill Ramon was a lead dildo cast from Valentino's member.
What?
And that it was crammed down Ramon's throat, suffocating him. The phallus didn't exist, but this urban legend still persists to this day. Tommy was eventually paroled in 1987, only to be arrested again and sentenced to 8 years in prison for raping a 54-year-old woman. He was paroled in 1990 and committed suicide on March 6, 2005 by slitting his own throat in a Motel 6. Paul was released in the late 80s, only to be sentenced to 60 years in prison for a 1989 rape and sodomy charge. He is still in prison to this day. Okay, his grave is in Section C, Lot 586. I think it's somewhere around here, because I think that right over there with the arch with the cross in it, he's near there. Somewhere here. With his reputation in ruins, Ramon emerged as a gay icon. Many may lay claim, but few Lavender Boys are worthy of the title. It's gonna be over on that side. Long before Ramon choked to death in his own blood, he was slowly suffocating to death in a closet, dazed by alcohol and confined by his devotion to Catholicism and society's total intolerance of male homosexuals. If only Ramon was alive today to see the progress of the LGBTQ community. Did I pass it? Oh, here it is. If he had lived, maybe Ramon would have found the acceptance he so deserved and so desperately wanted. We should have brought some roses. A little dirty. There he is. That's one of the reasons why I had to find Ramon's grave, so that I could pay tribute to a gay trailblazer and thank him.
it isn't worth crying about. I'm happier this moment than I've ever been in all my life. I think of all the happiness we have had together.
Pero esa rubia me gusta más.
Is that why you stopped?
Is that why I stopped drinking?
Yeah.
You know what? That's a good question, because as I've been working on this, I've realized that I like to keep my good looks.
That means you little son of a gun, I love you.